We start this post-game review with a question. Is this how you want Nebraska football to look? Is this how you want Nebraska football to look if you're a fan? Is this how you want it to look if you're the coaches and the players? Is this how you want it to look if you're Nebraska Athletic Director Trev Alberts?
Severe and Benning in the morning, 1620 The Zone. The voice you heard right there, Omaha World Herald sports editor and columnist for the Omaha World Herald. Of course, co-host of the Sip and Sam Showdown podcast on Husker Extra. Sam McEwen joining us here on 1620 The Zone. Good morning, Sam. Do you have an answer to your own question?
Well, I mean, I think what we saw on Saturday, the answer is no. I think getting sort of beaten by a team that chooses to run the ball in an expression of great irony is not the way you want it to look. And too many times in the Scott Frost era, I think we've seen the team's down by 2 scores late, and they get a score, and they're scrambling around, and they're trying to get an onside kick, and or they're trying to score late, or they've got to go 87 yards to tie the game, and they almost do, and all those things. Like, I feel like it feels like a fire drill a lot of times late in games, and I think that's because what they've done to get to that point hasn't been good enough to keep control of the game. And so, what I wrote on Monday was you're up 3 to start the second half, and you're playing like you're down. And I those kind of things don't make a ton of sense to me. And so, no, I think at this point, it's not really exactly how you want Nebraska football to work.
Sam, I got to start with a little encouragement. My guy Jay says, please tell Sam he's an amazing writer. I watch his videos after the game, and I honestly feel like someone understands the fan. And what he writes to us is amazing art, man. So he's giving you some props.
Nice.
Man.
Thanks. Well, we do it for not everybody. To be clear, not everybody in the media does it for the readers and the fans. Not everybody does. Some people do it because they want very much to feel like they're close to the people they cover. I do it for the fans, for the readers. We do. I do. No question.
Sam, so if, we were having this philosophical discussion, because I think at the core it's really part of the issue of what goes with Nebraska, whether it's not kind of knowing how you want to attack teams in the second half like on Saturday, whether it's kind of some strange answers where you ask one question and he kind of asks another, right? Answers another, where you get into the original question, maybe something, and then all of a sudden we start talking about hurry up and kind of how it helps. Where the clear-cut vision or the confidence in the delivery doesn't seem to match. How much of that do you think is what's happening behind the scenes when it comes to the belief factor of this football team?
Yeah, I think you made a couple good comments, I think, yesterday about how you feel like at times what's happening with Scott is he goes to that post game and he does a pretty good job. He doesn't get worked up or whatever, but he's cycling through thoughts in his mind that have been back in here somewhere in the back of his head for a while. And I think there's just a sense of frustration that it doesn't look the way that he would love it to look. That maybe part of him is like, man, I wish we could do what we do, which is go fast and play tempo and be North Carolina basketball and just outrun teams and things like that. And then they can't. They don't. Then he has the line about the talent, and he says, we're good. Talent-wise, we're good. We're not great. And that line is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And I felt like he might be talking more about the defense than the offense, because he's always been pretty praiseworthy of the talent on the offense, including yesterday with the offensive line. I think there's a sense of frustration there that they feel like they're close, but they are a program that must do all the little things right to win games. It's not we're just going to roll the ball out there and we can withstand some mistakes and some imperfections, and we're going to win anyway because our players are better than your players. And And, our style and our scheme is better. It's definitely an offense that's designed to hit big plays. It's definitely an offense that, a team that's designed in Frost's ideal world to win games 52-24, where you don't worry that much about the defense. But that's just not what they've had. They're not the fastest team in the Big Ten. At this point, I don't think they're all that close to being the fastest team in the Big Ten. And so, that stuff I think is on some level frustrating for them. And they're working on it. They're trying to work on it. But look at the game plan. I think he thinks he's going to come back in 2022, and that they've had good conversations with Trev. But look at the plan for 2022. The plan is bring back as many people who are on this team as possible, and supplement that with players that you don't know yet because they're in the transfer portal. That's a risky plan for winning 9 or 10 games next year. And they do need to win big next year. It can't be, if they go 5-7 this year, they can't be going 6-6 next year.
Sam, let me ask you something, because it's interesting. And I heard Sip kind of allude to this on Monday, and indirectly you referenced it today, and based on Coach Frost's comments about good team, not a great team. And I've said this for a while. After the Oklahoma game, the first thing I thought of wasn't talent. After the Michigan game, the first thing that I thought about wasn't talent. Certainly after the Michigan State game, the first thing I didn't talk about was talent.
Right.
Saturday, they got beat by a team who doesn't even like to run the ball, but ran the ball 41 times for 2.8 yards. Their coach said to me in passing, we either felt like we were going to break one at some point or Nebraska would break. Why do you think the talent discussion still comes up? Everybody always wants better players.
Right. Well,
I say that, Sam. I say that full well wanting you to expound on the fact that sometimes in your subconscious, if you're waiting on if you're waiting on something bigger, you have a tendency to not appreciate what it is in the moment. You're always so. I wonder if that's how they coach. I wonder if that's why you do things on 2nd and 1 like they did. Because you're always wanting something that you're not, as opposed to being currently who you are. That could do wonders.
Right. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think the talent discussion, it really doesn't come up with me. I don't think that the issue with Nebraska's team this year has been a lack of talent. And when Frost said over the summer that they have way more talent than they've had since he got here, I think that's all we need to hear. I think what frustrates him, and I think he's typically thinking of his offense, but maybe also his defense, is there's just not a ton of splash plays that they don't have to scheme up. I think that'd be the way to put it.
Well,
they're not going to get to the quarterback unless they bring 5, that kind of thing. I do think it's a conversation that gets a little at this stage is a little overblown. I think that Frank Solich had a team in 2003 that I would not have described as super talented. They weren't. They had some good players on defense, but that was an offense that was very very modest in terms of its yardage and point output, but they controlled the football and they won 9 games as a result in the regular season. And that wasn't a great team by any means, but it was a good coaching job. And I think I just think talent can get that button can get pressed a lot around here, because another thing that's happened, Damon, is I just feel like we're in a moment where there's so many people covering the program, and there's just a lot of people that I would say that really just desire to reflect whatever is the thought process is within North Stadium of how they can win more games. So I'm not trying to whatever, but I'm just saying that discussion comes up a lot because I think media are good people who are just trying to say, hey, this is a concern. whether or not that is, someone like you can identify and say, hey, maybe that's a conversation that probably needs to stop, or needs to maybe be turned down. That's challenging can be challenging sometimes. It's like asking the same players over and over, what about the pressure around here? And what about the fishbowl? And how hard is this becoming? And I'm like, they've been doing this for a long time. And you know what? There's a lot of Nebraska football players who really like being here. I don't think we have to reinforce the narrative that Bo Pelini tried to insert into the conversation 10 years ago because we feel, there are challenges with playing at Nebraska, one of which is that you feel like you can't ever have a rival, or you can't ever get emotionally up for an opponent. But that, the pressure and the those kind of things, that's just not part of it. I think the program's a little too insular in that way, and maybe we in the press could do a better job too.
I just think it's interesting, right, you guys? It's at one point, Nebraska was too slow to play against fast teams. So what did Nebraska try to do? They tried to keep things in front, and it made fans mad. It's like, oh, you just let people dink and dunk and, get out of the 50. And, well, until you got better players, you couldn't do what you wanted to do. And there's numerous examples of that. I just think it's interesting how if it always comes up what you aren't, I just don't see how you can maximize what you are, because I think your heart is always longing for something else, right? It's like if you're always talking about some certain other, somebody of the other sex, well, if I just had deep down, that's what your heart covets. And so you don't maximize what you have. You know what I mean? And it's just a dangerous discussion to have, because I think they play football games like that. Well, if we only had this, then we could do this. It comes up all the time in post games. I just try to figure it out.
And I asked the question yesterday of Scott Frost, and so I can indict myself here. That do you think your team would be different if you just had a Brendan Hyman? And actually, I think they would. I think they'd be a better team. I heard that. Because I think if they had a left tackle that they absolutely trusted, the picture would look different. But I can do that too. There's a lot of conversation about, was Adrian 100% this week? What percentage is he? And to Adrian's distinct credit, he says every time, if I couldn't play, I wouldn't be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I could do everything I wanted to do. So it feels like there's this constant behind the scenes, oh, Adrian's hurt, we're all of these other things. And again, if I feel like to respect the team is to be able to say, if the guy's out there and he's playing, watching every single time, it's like, well, he's pulling at his leg. These people do this all the time. This is part of the game. It's football. Ben Stilley said that yesterday. He's like, there's injuries you can't avoid. It's football. So
he limped too. He limped after grabbing his leg too. That's why it doesn't matter. He's got to go out there and he's got to play. I just think that he's hurt. Again, he's hurt more than they're talking about. Just like 2 years ago, he was hurt more than they talked about. And at the end of the season, we find out he has off-season surgery or whatever else. It's just I
don't disagree with that, but then they've got to decide to put someone else in,
or
they have to scheme it up so that he doesn't have to do it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Instead of longing for what you are, man, if he was only healthy, we could do this. Then it turns into, well, he can't do this. So what do we do in the meantime to give us the best chance to win?
Which they're probably trying to do.
Right.
I'm not saying they're not.
Yeah, but you wouldn't roll out in the first play against Minnesota and do what you did.
That's right. Those first three plays there were not great. And again, the second play of the second half, 2nd and 1, that's a hard play to call.
Sam, they were coming off a quarter in which they were running the ball for 7 yards a carry, and your first play went for 9.
Mm-hmm. Does it remind you a little bit of what Riley would do? He always liked taking shot plays on 2nd and 1.
A shot play's fine.
Yeah, he always went for a shot play, and they were trying to get a shot play.
Yeah, I understand the theory of it. Not sure I would have run that particular play. Like
a gimmick play.
there's a limit to that. There's a limitation to that play, and we saw what it was.
Mm-hmm.
In that, if you don't catch the player off guard right away, and apparently Martinez didn't feel comfortable throwing it to foul. Maybe he was covered, maybe he wasn't. The play goes off screen, and we don't have an all 22. And I wasn't paying a close enough attention to the bottom of the screen on that play when I was watching it live.
Sam, I'm going out on a limb.
The guy at the top isn't open.
I'm going out on a limb here, and maybe somebody can ask a question, or I guess I could shoot a call or break off a text. You know what that looked like to me? That looked like
what?
That looked like a play where, in theory, they knew what they wanted to do, but it looked like a formation they weren't familiar with. Like it's almost like they knew the concept of what they wanted to do, but that wasn't what they practiced.
And he said we had this set up to go the first time we had a 2nd and 1. He said that in the press conference.
It did look like the formation.
We had this set up to go.
It looked disjointed.
Like they were looking for that gimmick when they.
Like maybe they either wanted different personnel or a different formation. It looked disjointed to me.
Yeah, Adrian said they'd practiced the play before, and so
out of that formation,
he said it had been on the play sheet for a while, and we'll ask Lubick today if that's the situation.
Yeah,
I just don't know if Adrian.
I just want to know selfishly, like just say, hey, listen, was that the formation that you wanted to run that play out?
I don't think Adrian, and I know exactly what you're talking about. He's got to let that go as soon as he looks over there, and I know it's a hole throw. That's the only way he makes that throw. And I don't even know if he has the confidence to make that throw right now.
Right. I'm just,
you know,
and the fact that we're talking about a single play, I think underline that a full-bodied
because the game in essence turned on that play. And I'm not a singular play kind of guy.
Well, they only got 9 more yards rushed. That was the
okay.
only. They got no more yards rushing in the third quarter.
And after that, you're playing from behind.
Yeah. And they got 2 stops, right? The defense got 2 straight stops. Yeah, the defense got 2 straight stops.
Yeah.
And then it didn't turn until the punting exchange, right? I mean, you get to the you give them the ball at the 48, and all of a sudden they're making some plays. But it really turned on.
Here's my point. Did Nebraska score again?
No.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. No, I'm just saying in terms of it eventually turned. But you could even go back to not hitting the throw to Teray in the second quarter to say, okay, all that momentum going in, maybe you're not worrying about a gimmick play
if you're
on
playing
the first,
from up
second
2 scores, maybe
you're
or
up 10. So I mean, we can go back to so much.
All that stuff is true.
Yeah.
And again, if the conversation is about singular plays, I understand that. But just to give an example,
sure.
And this is an example of a great team, the 1983 Nebraska team. One of the greatest Nebraska teams of all time, didn't lose to Miami because they didn't get a 2-point conversion. They lost because their defense wasn't good all year.
Yeah, they played from behind.
And their defense hadn't played well all season long. And so all those games where Nebraska scored 84 or 72, they were busy giving up 35 and 29. And one of the reasons that Nebraska scored all those points that they did is because their defense was giving up scores fast.
Sure.
And so one of the things that changed from 1983 to 84, and granted the 84 team didn't win the national title either, is Nebraska had the number 1 defense in the country in 1984. And part of that was an understanding and acknowledgement of, yeah, we lost the game because at the end of the game, the pass was a little behind Jeff Smith, so on and so forth. But we gave up 30 points. And before that, we gave up 21 to Oklahoma. And there was an acknowledgement that Nebraska's defense had to get better. Likewise, in the 90s, when Nebraska got really, really good, and Damon, you were there when this happened, the offense changed some, but what happened is the offense got really good because the defensive philosophy changed to the point where the offense kept what the offense was doing, wore teams down by the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just moments where you would think that it's not just a play here or play there. Frost has got to think about the global vision of like, how do we want this program to function? And I think, he's got to be able to say, we've lost to Purdue, Minnesota, Illinois, and those 3 teams, I think, 8 times in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to ask yourself, what are these teams doing? Well, they're all running the ball, and they're all sitting on the ball. They held the ball 35 minutes here, 33 minutes here, 38 minutes here, 38 minutes here.
Right.
we have to figure out a way to stop that. And so that the games don't, so it's not Stanford, Oregon every week. And until they figure that out, I don't think the program's going to make that turn.
You know how many third downs Nebraska had, Sam?
Not that many, but maybe they did. I can't remember. I knew
10.
Had 17.
10. They were 4 of 10 from third down. You know how many third downs Purdue had?
17.
17.
Yeah.
What?
And you count their fourth downs in there too, and they
were 2 of 3.
They were 50% essentially on third and fourth down.
So you're talking about a team that had 86 snaps compared to 58.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You better be efficient.
Yep.
Or have the ball more.
Yeah. Hey, Sam.
That's right. And take care, guys.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. We'll see you on Saturday. Sam McEwen, of course, you can always catch them. He and Sip doing their podcast as well. Usually comes out on Wednesday. The Sam and Sip Showdown should be good this week. We got a lot still to get to, including Pick 1, some NBA stuff, interesting stats about LeBron James. Plus, we'll recap the NFL week. Oh, interesting betting angle for you in that as well.
It's unbelievable.
And some Ohio State, Nebraska early notes. Just how good is Ohio State? It's here in Betting in the Morning.